Hi, I'm Andrew Bluestein, and I'll be discussing Eileen Meehan's Conceptualizing Culture as a Commodity, the Problem of Television. Her main argument is that critical analyses of television need to consider the medium's dualistic nature. There's a business side and the creative side, and the balance between the two is what needs to be studied. The product eventually put out there for consumers is affected by television producers who are looking to create a marketable, cost-effective program that appeals to as wide an audience as possible, and creatives who are exploring how to share a unique idea through the medium of television. Meehan states that these contradictions ultimately work hand in hand, and the result is what we see on TV. There are three main terms Meehan uses when making her argument. One is oligopoly, which, in the context of the television industry, refers to the handful of producers that are responsible for the majority of the content. She explains that the oligopoly creates a competitive dynamic between 4 or 5 major producers. They're both looking for ways to innovate, satisfying culture creators, and ways to imitate what already works, satisfying the masses who are comfortable with tried and true television. The next term is culture industry, which is one half of the television industry. Basically, industries are interested in manufacturing culture, something for an audience to gather around. Meehan says that creation of culture artifacts, in this case television, is primarily an economic activity subject to the bounds of profitability, cost efficiency, oligopoly, and interpreting industries. So television exists within marketable parameters, which checks creativity and produces something profitable. The next term, the other half of the television industry, is industrial culture. This is basically looking at it from the side of the creators and the consumers. Meehan says culture exists as a fund of meanings, images, and understandings that is impacted by a trove of outside forces like social structure, economic structure, and random error. There are so many subcultures that produce unique content. This content is eventually co-opted and sold back to them after going through the filters of television production. Instead of having something sold to them by the oligopoly finds what is unique and trending and puts it on the airwaves. Something like the Chris Gethard Show shows the balance between the culture industry and the industrial culture. The Chris Gethard Show was an underground phenomenon that ultimately made its way on national television. It's familiar yet unique because it's a wild twist on the classic late night format, and it's produced by Turner, a member of the oligopoly. Something I disagreed with was Meehan's explanation of the cyclical nature of manufacturing content. She describes how producers act rationally when creating content and that their responses to the ebbs and flows of audience viewership is met with content that's just a slight departure of the familiar. I think this dismisses niche markets. Meehan focuses too much on the masses. Television is increasingly weird and irrational. You can look at shows on Adult Swim, or you can look at a show like Portlandia. I think audiences are more nuanced than Meehan believes, which allows for a television that departs pretty far from the norm. Something I agreed with is Meehan's explanation of bounded creativity. This problem lies at the crux of the television industry's duality. There's a tug of war between the conservative oligopoly and the liberal industrial culture. Here, Meehan draws parallels to the film industry, which I think is apt, as this battle occurs there too. An example of this is what happened with the movie Pootie Tang. Comedian Louis C.K. ultimately couldn't make the movie he wanted because the powers that be didn't find his vision marketable, resulting in poor audience reception. This impacted Louis' eventual venture into television, in which he demanded creative control of his eponymous show. Bounded creativity in media, including television, especially television, definitely exists, and that ultimately shapes the final product. Thank you.